Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I parked the borrowed box truck under the bridge by the river, steam pushing up from the storm drains like the whole street was exhaling. The cold climbed through the cracked windshield, and I watched it fog the glass while the engine clicked its last heat. I didn't shut the door. I just sat there, holding the wheel, trying not to think about the house I used to own less than a year ago, 2 miles from here, with a grill I paid off in cash and a deck I built with my own hands. 11 months ago, I had a mortgage, a 401k, 3 bikes in the garage, and a drawer full of receipts for meat I used to grill on Saturdays. I was store manager at Ridgeway Supermarket in South Charlotte for 9 years. Now, I worked third shift as a freight terminal supervisor, busted pallets, forklift drama, wrapped that split like paper, and picked up repair gigs on my days off, which meant the days I didn't sleep through entirely. My name's Nate Lawton. I'm 36. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Sort of. The divorce went toxic before the ink dried. My ex, Heather, figured out how to nuke me from orbit without touching the kids. She leaned on restructuring, whispered to the district manager, Marcus Hale, and suddenly, I had performance issues. Warnings I never saw coming. Walked out on a Thursday with a smile from HR and a file folder I didn't ask for. A week later, she got the house in mediation, and Marcus had his arm around her on Facebook. I slept in the back of a closed-down mattress store for 3 weeks before the landlord caught on. The kids, Callan, 13, Marin, 11, and Boone, 8, stayed with her at first. That didn't last. She left for a weekend conference in Asheville, didn't come back that Sunday, didn't even text. I picked them up from her sister's apartment Monday morning. 1 duffel bag, 3 scared faces, no explanation. Quick note, before listening, tell us which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. We figured things out fast. Showers at the community center. School drop-offs on my last fumes of energy before crashing on a cot in a friend's warehouse. Third shift again by 10 p.m. I stretched gas money with side jobs, patching drywall, swapping light fixtures, pulling dead outlets from kitchen walls in houses better than mine used to be. The terminal was steel and rust, 100 yards off the river. Orange hazard lights blinked over crates of medical supplies, dog food, clothes for department stores I couldn't afford. I walked the lanes with bitter coffee in a paper cup, logging damaged freight and breaking up rookie fights over who smashed what. I kept my mouth shut and my boots moving. Nomi Hart, who ran the neighborhood center next door, found me one night between dock bays, clipboard in one hand, voice steady as ever. She never pitied me, just offered time, safety, structure. The kids loved her. I did too, though I wasn't sure what that meant yet. Boone came over sometimes after homework with a library book jammed into his coat. One night he swore it smelled like cinnamon. He curled up in my hoodie on the busted office chair and fell asleep before I finished logging the shift. I stuck a note to the desk about his late fee so I wouldn't forget. We weren't winning, but we weren't falling apart either. Not totally. For the next 4 days, they slept in a church sublet with 1 working heater and a bathroom door that stuck. I crashed in the truck. I kept the engine running some nights just to fight the cold. I didn't tell them that part. I called my buddy in Nashville about weekend freight shifts. 6 hours each way, but the pay was clean, and shoes weren't free. Neither were field trip fees or asthma meds. River fog hung low when I clocked out. I counted $34 from faucet swaps, and a woman who tipped me in singles for fixing her screen door. I bought 3 breakfast burritos and promised myself, again, that this was temporary, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. I didn't care. The kids were still with me. That was the only scoreboard that counted. Eddie let me rent the loft over the old engine shop with no paperwork beyond cash and a handshake. The place was 2 rooms, if you were generous, and it smelled like radiator fluid the first few nights. The windows rattled when trucks passed on the street, and the heater made a sound like it had unfinished business with us. I paid weekly in an envelope, and Eddie never asked about my credit because he already knew what kind of people ended up in places like this. I taped the busted kitchen drawer back together with duct tape, used a level on the kids' bunk beds so they wouldn't roll, and fixed the toilet chain with a shoelace from Boone's spare sneakers. The place wasn't safe exactly, but it was ours, and the door locked. My nights belonged to the terminal. Manifest checks, missing labels, drivers who thought rules were optional. One forklift battery died every other hour, and no one wanted to be the guy who admitted it needed replacing. I logged everything because I knew what it meant when someone wanted a scapegoat. On my off days, if the kids were squared away, I fixed porch railings, replaced outlets, and unclogged sinks for whoever left a flyer up at the community center. The math didn't work, but I kept bending it until it didn't break. Nomi folded us into the center without making it a big gesture. She never once called it charity. Kids got a hot meal after school, help with homework, and access to the little gym. The rule was simple: everyone gives something back. Callan organized the gear closet like it was a locker room. Marin started reading to the younger ones with a voice that made them listen. Boone shelved paperbacks and alphabetized them like it mattered. It did. One morning I caught Callan walking Boone to school with his hand on his little brother's shoulder like it was the most normal thing in the world. The kid had filled out again. His shoulders weren't so sharp, his walk wasn't so cautious. I could see the baseball player underneath the stress. Marin had started tracking our spending with highlighters in a ruled notebook she found in a clearance bin. She even labeled the pens by rent, food, and gas. That notebook said more than any therapy session ever could. I turned 37 and didn't say a word to the kids. I thought I'd just get through the day and forget it. But that evening, Nomi handed me a key to the center's tool closet. She said, "Use what you need. Bring it back charged." That hit harder than any birthday cake I'd ever had. I made a new rule that week. We don't skip breakfast. Ever. I started cooking scrambled eggs in a pan so scratched you could see the metal. The kids fought over the last orange, and for 5 minutes, nobody mentioned bills or teachers or court dates. I held on to those 5 minutes like they were worth money. The ex came by once, just showed up without warning. Marcus Hale's SUV sat running outside like a getaway car. She stood in the doorway, all polished and bored, and asked, "So, are you coping?" She called me Nate, like we worked at the same company and didn't share 3 kids. Then she said, "I could offer some help, if you're open to a more formal agreement," and pulled a manila envelope halfway out of her purse like it was a bribe. I didn't open it. I didn't ask. I just shut the door. Then I stood there and shook like my bones were short-circuiting. But we had a routine now. Tight, repeatable, duct taped together. School drop-offs, the center, my crash nap, shift at the terminal, breakfast, repeat. I bought a dollar store calendar and put a smiley face sticker on every Sunday just to trick my brain into thinking something good might happen. One quiet night, I brought Callan with me to the terminal. Told him it was the future workforce tour. He looked bored at first, but when one of the younger guys screwed up a wrap and freight toppled like a bad game of Jenga, Callan stepped up. He rewound the plastic wrap with perfect tension, tighter than I'd seen in weeks. The lead on duty raised an eyebrow and said, "Kids got hands." Callan grinned like that meant something. It did. The next week, I caught a misscan that would have sent a shipment of medical kits halfway to Memphis. I flagged it, fixed it, and logged the override just in case someone wanted to blame the software. The client sent a thank you email to my supervisor. He read it, nodded once, and forwarded it without a word. I saved it in a folder on my phone and named it Proof. We were still broke. The heater still coughed like it had asthma. Boone still had one coat between school and sleep. But something had shifted. One night, Marin asked me, "Are we okay now?" I didn't want to lie. So I said, "We're better than last month." And for once, I meant it. I was logging damaged freight labels on a busted clipboard when the guard tapped on the glass and said, Someone here for you?" His face was pale like he'd seen a ghost, or a tax audit. She walked in like the place owed her something. Tall, slate-colored wool coat, hair pulled back, not rushed, but not slow either. She didn't ask. She said, "I'm looking for Nathaniel Lawton," and showed the guard a card. He looked at me like I was already fired or sued. I wiped my hands on my shirt and said, "That's me." She turned toward the coffee pot like she'd been here before. "If you've got somewhere private, I'd appreciate a word." Her voice was calm, clipped, lawyer smooth. I led her to the tiny conference room between the break fridge and a safety poster that hadn't been updated since 2009. The door didn't close all the way unless you kicked it. I kicked it. She sat across from me, pulled a thick leather folder from her bag, and set it down. The smell hit first: leather, ink, and something that made my throat tight. Expensive. "I'm Celeste Montrose," she said, sliding her card across. "Attorney at law, executor of Eileen Lawton's estate." My brain stalled on the name. Eileen, my grandma, the one who kept a roll of quarters in her sweater for laundry and vending machines and parking meters. She made peanut butter sandwiches like a factory and always said, "Don't waste the good tape." I blinked, slow. Celeste didn't flinch. "Your grandmother established a guardianship clause through a trust her father built. He ran river shipping when the mills were strong. She preserved it, never touched it. The trust matured after 31 years. I stared at the folder like it was going to punch me. "Eileen passed last week," she said. "Per her request, notification to beneficiaries would come through me directly." I sat down because my knees weren't going to hold. Celeste opened the folder and flipped to a page marked with a brass clip. "The trust's current value is $58.7 million. That's pre-tax. Post-tax, it's still generational." I laughed at the wrong time, loud, sharp. "Okay, so this is a scam." She slid 3 documents across the table like cards at a high-stakes table. Bank statements, audit trails, a court order with my full name printed in bold at the top, like I owed someone rent. "You can verify these at the clerk's office," she said. "We've already moved to seal the accounting and beneficiary notices." I read one paragraph, then another. Then my eyes blurred. "The funds are for the Lawton great-grandchildren only. Not spouses, not extended family. You, as guardian, are the interim manager on their behalf, pending oversight." I stared down at the bottom line and couldn't breathe. "There's a condition," she added. "For 90 days, the adult guardian, meaning you, may not request or receive any disbursement from the trust. All living expenses must come from earned income. No exceptions. Not fast food. Nothing. It's built in as a character test. Eileen helped design it herself. She wanted to know that love could survive pressure." I rubbed the bridge of my nose and said, "We're already in that test, aren't we?" She nodded once. "Yes, Mr. Lawton, you are." I asked about Heather, my ex. Celeste's tone didn't change. "The trust is for the children. Custody is the court's business. If the kids aren't safe where they are, the state steps in. And wealth attracts pressure from all sides, especially the wrong ones." I picked up one of the documents and tried to focus, but all I saw were ways to breathe. Medical care, college, rent in a place with heat that worked. I thought about Boone's hand-me-down shoes, and Callan asking if we were okay now. I saw some new suit stepping in and saying, "Sorry, but the court ruled otherwise." I saw my kids packing up again. I pushed the paper aside and said, "Where do I sign to confirm receipt and agree to the freeze?" She pulled a pen from her coat pocket. "Here," she said. "Initial here, sign here. Keep this copy. This starts the clock." I wrote my name like it belonged to someone else. "Document everything," she said. "Receipts, hours worked, rent, food, school involvement. Record it all. They may ask and they will check." I nodded. "You've had us under glass for a while, haven't you?" "I've reviewed public records," she said. "I've seen your shift logs, your emergency room visits, the school's contact notes. I've spoken with Ms. Hart from the center." My jaw clenched. "So what? You're impressed?" "No," she said. "I'm satisfied." She slid one last envelope toward me. These are possible interview questions. For CPS, for court, for the trustees. Some are invasive. Prepare your answers. Then she stood up, pulled on her gloves, and walked out without another word. I stayed in that busted conference room for maybe 4 minutes, just staring at the space she left behind. I didn't touch the folder. Didn't check the total again. Didn't let myself think too long about what 58 million meant. Instead, I got up, walked back onto the freight floor, and grabbed a pallet jack. A busted crate of dry goods needed moving. Nobody asked where I went. Nobody looked at me funny. I was still just the night guy with bad boots and a clipboard that barely held together. And I needed to move something heavy, because if I didn't, I might have broken down right there. I told Eddie I was out sick for the night and left the dock keys on the hook. It wasn't the first lie I'd told to hold things together, but it felt cleaner than the rest. I stopped by Mary's pantry for cinnamon rolls, the good kind, the ones that come in a brown paper bag and steam it through by the time you get home. I didn't say anything when the woman at the counter said, "Rough morning?" I just tipped $1 and left. The loft smelled like burnt radiator and last night's eggs. The kids were still under blankets, curled into the quiet like they knew something was off. I called out, "Breakfast meeting, couch rules, cinnamon rolls if nobody complains." That bought me 5 minutes of peace and 5 extra seconds to hold myself together. Callan sat down first, hair a mess, still half in dream mode. Marin followed, clutching her notebook like she was already behind on the day. Boone ran in with a sock on one foot and asked if we were late for school. "We're skipping today," I said. "Just today." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "You never let us skip." "I'm allowed to be full of surprises now and then," I said. "Sit. Eat." They each grabbed one roll and tore the corners first, like kids who knew to ration. "Okay," I started. "I need to tell you something serious, and I need you to hear all of it before you react. Deal?" Callan stopped chewing. Marin reached into her pocket for a pen. Boone just nodded, mouth full. "Your great-grandma Eileen left something behind. A trust. It's big. She set it up a long time ago with money from her father's company. It grew, and she never touched it. She saved it for you 3. I watched their faces shift in 3 different ways. Marin leaned forward. "How big?" "Big enough to pay for college, medical, a house, a few houses." Boone blinked. "Does this mean we can get a dog?" Callan said nothing. "It means you're safe," I told them. "It also means people will test that. And it means we don't spend a single cent for 90 days. That's one of the rules. We're already in that test, and we're going to pass it." Marin nodded like that made sense. "Can we still plan things? If we're not spending, we could still make a list. Could we help other families at the center?" Her voice was sharper than usual, excited and scared at the same time. That girl's brain never quit running. "Yeah," I said. "We'll make a list. But planning is different than spending. The money's locked, and it's going to stay locked until we pass the test. No exceptions." Boone slid off the couch and grabbed a library book from under his hoodie. He opened it to the back cover and pulled out a folded slip of paper like it was hidden treasure. "This fell out last night," he said. "I thought it was a bookmark. But look." I unfolded it. 6 lines, handwritten in a shaky script I recognized instantly. "Wealth without love is poverty. Love builds houses money can't. The test is the door. Family is the key. Remember who you are, and finish what I started." It was Eileen. Her hand, her voice in the rhythm of the lines. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I just folded it again and held it like a hot coal. Callan finally spoke, quiet but sharp. "We don't tell Mom until we have a lawyer in the room." I looked at him, really looked, and saw it. The kid who'd seen too much, who read silence like a second language. "Agreed," I said. We sat down together and made rules. Hard ones. School routine doesn't change, even if we have money. No talking to reporters. If people ask about the trust, we say, "We're focused on school." We speak facts only. No rumors, No guessing. We don't flex, brag, or panic. Boone added, and if anybody asks if we're rich, we just say we eat eggs and live over a car shop. That one stayed on the list. I called Nomi from the hallway, read her Eileen's letter, slow, voice rough in places I didn't expect. She didn't ask for a copy. She just said, I'm proud of you, Nate. The center conference room's yours whenever you need it. No strings. That told me more than anything. Back inside, I opened a blank spreadsheet on my laptop and motioned for Marin. She climbed into the chair like a second in command and labeled the top row, Day 1. We entered every dollar earned from my shift, then every dollar spent, rent, groceries, gas. She made color codes. I stapled receipts. I printed 3 copies of the log for safety. That night, Boone taped Eileen's letter to the wall above his bunk with the same care he used on library posters. He didn't ask for help. He didn't tell anyone. He just climbed the stepladder, smoothed the corners, and stepped back like it was a flag going up. I sat on the floor with my back against the bunk frame, arms around my knees, staring at that piece of paper like it was gospel. I wasn't scared of the money. I wasn't scared of failing the test. I was scared of what came after, of what people turn into when they smell blood in the water. But that night, right there on the floor of our drafty little loft, I picked the hill I was willing to die on. Our family doesn't get bought. Not by money, not by threats, not by lawyers in clean coats or exes in SUVs. Not now. Not ever. By 11:15 that morning, a junior reporter from some local People First blog ran a headline that hit harder than a layoff slip. Riverfront dad's kids may inherit millions. Someone had leaked the trust petition, probably through a court clerk with an envelope under the table. By lunch, 2 news vans boxed the alley like it was a crime scene. I had to snake the box truck past a woman in wedge boots trying to film through my side mirror. The moment I parked, another camera swung toward the dock door like it had been waiting all day for me to sweat. Inside, my phone was already vibrating nonstop. 14 missed calls, 2 voicemails from unknown numbers, and a flood of texts from people I didn't even recognize. Some congratulating me, some asking for a quick chat about opportunities. One message from an old coworker I fired back in 2017 said, "Hey, no hard feelings, man. Want to invest in a podcast?" And then there were the ones I knew. Heather texted, "We need to strategize. Call me ASAP." Right behind it, her fiancé Marcus Hale added himself to the thread like he was still my district manager. Looping in our legal rep to advise on next steps kids' financial exposure. Then, like a cherry on top, HR from my old store chain emailed a "Congratulations, hope you're well" note. The same chain that walked me out with a single warning and a locked account. By 4:30, I stopped checking. I switched the phone to silent and threw it in my glove box like a brick. That evening, at 7:20 sharp, Child Protective Services knocked on the door. The woman wore state-issue boots and a jacket too nice for a government salary. Her card said, Inspector Shayla Kern. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flash a badge, just said, "I'm here for a scheduled welfare check, Mr. Lawton." I let her in. She moved with purpose, looked at the heater, tested the hot water, opened the fridge without asking, and took notes while her eyes swept the kids' backpacks lined up like soldiers by the wall. Boone tried to offer her a cinnamon roll from the leftover pack. She declined politely but thanked him by name, which I didn't like but respected. She asked for documents. I gave her everything. Our 90-day expense log, school reports, Nomi's after-school attendance notes, and my signed acknowledgement from Celeste. I also handed her our overnight check-in plan. Eddie downstairs had a key and did an 11 p.m. walkthrough. Nomi kept her phone on, and my dock was 4 minutes away. When she flipped through the folder and closed it with a quiet snap, she said, "You did your homework, Mr. Lawton." I nodded once. "I'm not failing this test." She didn't smile. "Let's hope no one else tries to make you." The next call came from Celeste an hour later. Her voice was clipped but not surprised. "Your ex's uncle filed an interested party petition," she said. "So did a cousin we've got one school form on from 8 years ago." I paced as she talked. Let me guess. Never sent the kids a Christmas card, but suddenly thinks they're heirs to the kingdom? Celeste didn't indulge it. They want court time. They'll get it. But they don't have what you have. Documentation, consistency, records. Thanks, I said. Keep me posted. 2 nights later, Heather showed up in lipstick and a blazer she hadn't worn since mediation. Marcus waited in the SUV out front, engine running. She knocked like we were about to have coffee. I think we should coordinate messaging, she said. It's important the kids see we're united. I stared at her. United in what, exactly? Public-facing strategy, co-parenting alignment. She held her phone like a weapon. You've been handling things solo for a while now. Maybe we talk terms. I didn't have to say anything. Colin stepped out from the hallway, taller than last summer, jaw set. We're good here, he said, voice steady, not a tremble in it. Heather blinked like she'd seen a ghost, then glanced toward the SUV. Well, just think about it. We didn't answer. We just closed the door and locked it behind her. The noise didn't stop there. I started seeing weird gaps on the terminal floor. Sealed freight a pallet light. Manifests with weight discrepancies. At first, I thought it was stress. Then I started logging the details in a spiral notebook I kept under my locker shelf. Timestamps, seal numbers, names, one too many of them tied back to the Nashville hub. I didn't say a word to my lead, just filed quiet reports and watched. Nomi ran interference from the other side. Word had spread at the center, and some parents had questions, not all kind. She shut it down, set clear boundaries. The Lawton kids are still Lawton kids, she told one loud volunteer, and that means they're nobody's business but their own. She didn't tell me all of it, but I knew she caught flack for defending us. Then a news crew caught us leaving the center after pickup. Boone gripped my hand so tight I felt his nails dig through the fabric of my sleeve. The cameraman zoomed straight in like we were animals behind glass. I stepped forward. Please respect the kids. Back up. Now. No one listened. I packed them into the truck, backed out fast, looped the block twice, and pulled into a grocery lot just to breathe. The next morning, Shayla showed up unannounced. No knock this time, just standing outside when we came back from breakfast. It's standard, she said. High-interest cases get 2 unscheduled visits. She walked through the place with a clipboard again, this time slower. Then she stopped by Boone's bunk and looked up at the paper he'd taped to the wall. Wealth without love is poverty, she read quietly. That your grandmother? Yes, ma'am, I said. She nodded but didn't comment. On her way out, she turned back. You understand what wealth does to families, Mr. Lawton? We're not touching it, I said. Not yet. That's the line. She gave one nod. No expression. Keep documenting. Later that week, my supervisor pulled me aside. Your name's getting bounced around in company updates, he said. I don't care about your personal stuff, but the attention's starting to bleed onto the dock. My job's to move freight, I said, and I'm still moving it. He pointed at the clock. Just don't make it my problem. Celeste's advice was short. Say less. Do more. Stack your evidence. They'll come for what they think they're owed. I did exactly that. Logged my hours, checked my expenses, printed screenshots of every bank transaction. At dinner, I told the kids again, this is noise. We don't let noise steer the ship. Callan nodded and passed the rice. Marin stuck a new graph to the fridge showing our energy use. Boone added a sticker to the letter above his bed. The outside world wanted a story, wanted scandal, fame, failure, money, any piece they could carve from our lives. But we didn't give it to them. Not now. Not ever. Courtroom 4C felt like a fishbowl. The back row was packed with reporters pretending they weren't scribbling quotes for clickbait. Every head turned when I walked in. My jacket still smelled like freight dust and machine oil, and I didn't care. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. My stomach was flipping like a dryer, but I walked in steady. Heather sat across the aisle in a new blazer that didn't quite fit, and heels she probably hadn't broken in. Her lawyer looked like he rented his suit by the hour. Her uncle was there too, Gene something, with a maroon tie that hung crooked like he hadn't worn one since his niece's wedding. Judge Miriam Holbrook walked in like she was allergic to nonsense. She scanned the room with the kind of look that made grown adults sit straighter. Her gavel hit once. "Let's begin." The uncle's lawyer went first. Polite tone, full of snake oil words. "We're here out of deep concern for the financial future of these minors, a matter of proper stewardship and fiduciary responsibility." He kept saying opportunities like my kids were startup investments. Then Heather's attorney stood up and started floating ideas like balloons. Joint guardianship, third-party financial oversight, neutral advisory panel, all of it leading straight to Marcus Hale's name. He said it so casually, like Marcus wasn't waiting in the hall with a Bluetooth headset and a printed agenda. I laughed once, just a sharp breath through my nose, and Judge Holbrook raised an eyebrow. Then Shayla Kern stood. No frills, no performance. Just a report, straight down the middle. Mr. Lawton has maintained employment since prior to the trust's activation. School attendance for all 3 children is consistent. Health records up to date. Housing is stable. The children participate daily at the neighborhood community center. All documentation of finances aligns with the 90-day non-spend agreement. She handed the report to the bailiff. Then she sat down without a glance at anyone else. My court-appointed lawyer tried. I'll give him that. But he looked outgunned. Until Celeste Montrose stood up from the gallery, cool as ever, and walked straight to the witness chair with a stack of folders so thick it made the judge blink. "Your Honor, I'm appearing as executor of Eileen Lawton's estate and counsel to the trustees of the Lawton Family Trust." She opened the first folder like it was a playbook. "These are the original trust terms, audits, the 90-day freeze language. Here is Mr. Lawton's signed acknowledgement from day one. He has not accessed, redirected, or manipulated any funds. This is the full ledger of earned income and expenses during the freeze, including receipts categorized by necessity, rent, food, school needs. All from outside wages." The judge didn't look at the paper. She looked at me. Her eyes stayed locked while Celeste listed grocery line items. I didn't look away. Then the kids took the stand. Marin had asked to speak. She walked up holding her notebook like it was a science fair project. "We decided not to spend anything for 90 days, she said. It was the rule. I made a spreadsheet. We tracked every dollar from Dad's job, and we didn't touch the trust." The judge asked one question. "Why?" Marin didn't flinch. "Because Grandma Eileen said money isn't the point. Trust is." Then Boone, little coat buttoned all wrong, held up Eileen's library note in a plastic sleeve like it was sacred. "This was in her book," he said. "She wrote it for us. It says love builds houses. Money can't." The room went still. Callan stood last, hands at his sides, voice steady. "We didn't choose money," he said. "We chose Dad." That line broke something in me, but I held it together. Just. Heather tried to cry after that. Really tried. Voice quivering, hands fluttering, all the signs of someone who watched too much court drama. Judge Holbrook waited, then asked, flat, "Where were you the weekend the children first came into Mr. Lawton's care?" Heather blinked, caught off guard. I was at a conference, work-related." "Do you have documentation of that?" "I didn't keep the hotel receipt, but I was reachable. I stood and handed over printed texts, time-stamped. 3 days in a row asking about child support, left on read, break time. We were all told to step into the hallway. I needed air, but didn't get far. Marcus Hale found me by the vending machines and leaned in close with that corporate smirk I knew too well. "Big boy's money now, huh?" he said. "Let's see how long you can keep up the act." I said nothing. Not because I was scared, because if I opened my mouth, I'd say something that would cost me the whole case. Back on the record, it was my turn. I didn't rehearse a speech, just told the truth. I work nights. I feed my kids. I fix what breaks. I kept the rule because that's what Eileen asked. That's the job. The trust is for them, not for me. I haven't touched it, not 1 cent. I paused. I keep a clipboard at work because I used to be a store manager, and I know what theft looks like. I track details, names, dates, not because I'm paranoid, because I've been burned. Celeste stood once more. "One final exhibit, Your Honor," she said. "This is a sealed memo from the original trust council, dated 31 years ago." The judge read it once, then again. She didn't react, just set it gently on the bench. Then she looked up and said, "The law requires clarity, so here it is." She listed the findings. Sole legal and physical custody to Nathaniel Lawton. Heather flinched. The Lawton Children's Trust will be managed by independent fiduciary trustees, not by family members or external guardians. She looked at Heather again. The court orders a structured visitation plan for their mother, monitored if necessary. No financial oversight will be granted to non-custodial parties. And then her eyes found me again. "Mr. Lawton, keep doing what you're doing." She brought the gavel down like she meant it. Sharp. Final. Like time had snapped into rhythm. I didn't exhale until I was out in the hallway again. The hallway outside the courtroom hit me like river wind in winter. Loud, fast, no place to hide. Reporters leaned over the security rope shouting questions I didn't care enough to process. "Are you moving into a mansion? Will there be a yacht? Is the trust liquid yet?" Boone held my hand like a clamp, his other arm tucked tight under mine. Marin kept her head down, counting steps. Callan walked close behind me, broad enough now to look like a shadow. We pushed through the glass doors together. Boone tugged my sleeve, quiet but hopeful. "So, does this mean we can get a dog now?" I didn't look down, just kept walking. "We'll talk." Back at the loft, we didn't even take our coats off right away. The heater had gone quiet again, probably tripped the breaker. I reset it while the kids pulled burritos from the freezer. Nobody talked until we sat down at the wobbly kitchen table. That table had been with us since the church sublet, one leg always a little off, like it was leaning with us. Callan started it. "So, now what?" Marin didn't wait. "We should get a place with a yard, 2 bathrooms, a closet that doesn't stick." Boone raised his hand like it was class. "Can we get one that smells like new paint?" I looked at them for a long second. They'd earned comfort. But something in me didn't want comfort just for us. "I want us safe," I said. "And I want our choice to mean something." That night I loaded them into the truck and drove down to the old block near the river. The brick building with the busted elevator. The one where we used to microwave ramen and crack windows to keep the smell of mildew from sticking. Some of the units were boarded. Others still had lights on. "This," I said, pointing up, "was home, on our worst days." Marin sat forward, squinting up. "You brought us here? Why?" "Because we could buy this whole thing," I said. "Fix it, not flip it. No luxury stoves, no marble sinks, just clean working units, for families like us." They all stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then Marin said, "You mean us plus everybody?" Callan looked back at the building, then nodded, slow, thoughtful. Boone leaned up against my arm. "Can the laundry machines work? Like, actually work?" I smiled for the first time that day. The next morning I called Celeste and laid out the plan. A separate community trust, not the main one, owned by no one, built to keep people housed. Cap rents, emergency units reserved for families from the center, no profit-taking, just protection. She didn't talk for a few seconds. Then she said, "That's ambitious, and very Eileen." That meant yes. Later that same week, I handed my terminal theft logs to her investigator. I didn't even ask for updates, just said, "Follow it wherever it goes." Celeste's investigator walked the package into the DA's office in Davidson County, the same day corporate opened their audit. It went further than I thought. 2 weeks later, I got asked to sit in on a visit from corporate loss prevention. 3 guys in clean vests and soft shoes took notes while I explained the pattern. How the pallet swaps always happened on the same 2 shifts. How the discrepancies lined up with the Nashville run manifests. How the names circled back to one shell distributor. That distributor? It led straight to Marcus Hale, the one who tried to co-parent with a press kit in his glove box. By the following Monday, his company lost their logistics contract overnight. A DA in Davidson County opened a file on bid rigging. I didn't get a thank you. Didn't want one. That part of the job was done. Nomi heard about the building and showed up the next morning with a binder full of blank forms and a smile that filled the room. "If you're serious," she said, "the center's got volunteer crews for paint, patchwork, and post-move support." Then she gave me that look, half proud, half warning. "But Nate," she added, "do it slow. Do it right. Don't turn a gift into a job you hate." That stuck. I wrote it on the whiteboard above the fridge. Do it slow. Do it right. We spent that weekend sketching rooms on graph paper at the table. Callan measured stairwells and elevator shafts from memory. Marin divided units by square footage and labeled them A through H. Boone made a list titled Important Things that included beanbags, warm lights, and a corkboard for lost mittens. Nomi offered the center's storage bins. Celeste reviewed the trust bylaws. Eddie from the loft even offered a contact for fire code compliance. And me? I sat on the fire escape that night, my phone in one hand, the river in front of me, the smell of cinnamon rolls still floating from the oven. I texted Celeste. "We picked the building over a house." Her reply came back fast. Eileen would approve. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. I didn't cry. Not exactly. But I sat there for a long time while the wind came off the water and the heater inside finally kicked on with a bang that didn't scare us anymore. We closed the first week after day 90 in a conference room that still smelled like dry erase markers and burnt coffee. No balloons, no press, just signatures, copies, and one quiet promise. The Lawton Block Trust became real on paper and heavier in the air. The board we built from scratch, Eddie from the loft, Ms. Wheeler from the middle school, and Nomi, of course, sat shoulder to shoulder at the folding table like they'd been doing this for years. The funding came through clean, part from the trustees' approved post-day 90 release, part matched by a local housing foundation that knew what desperation looked like. We kept one boundary firm. None of it touched our household expenses. The money wasn't ours. It was the building's. We didn't change our routines. I still worked nights at the terminal, still fixed porch rails for cash on Saturdays, still kept a callus on both hands. The kids kept their spots at the center. Marin still color-coded receipts. Callan still walked Boone to school even when it rained. The money wasn't the win. It was the tool. Renovation days hit like mission trips. Some crews scraped chipped paint. Others checked wiring that looked like it hadn't been updated since '82. The first time we tried to remove a non-load-bearing wall, 3 of us ended up cursing in 3 different languages. That wall stayed. We made peace with it. Nomi rolled out a new policy that made too much sense to ignore. Pay it forward hours. Tenants could knock a chunk off rent by helping with repairs, trash runs, or tutoring shifts at the center. No handouts, no guilt, no paperwork loops. Just honest work. The board took a full 2-hour meeting to approve it, mostly because Eddie wanted to argue about liability. In the end, it passed with a 3-0 vote. Mid-month, my terminal supervisor pulled me aside after shift. "We've got an assistant ops spot open," he said. "More pay, day hours. Interested?" I thanked him, told him I'd pass for now. "Nights give me the afternoon with my kids. That's what I'm keeping." He paused, then gave the smallest nod. "You're good at this," he said. "When you're ready." The DA's office called later that week. They didn't want a media statement, just corroboration. I gave them what I had. My logs, my notes, my chain of custody forms. Marcus Hale had already lawyered up, and Heather? She went radio silent. Not even a birthday card text. The supermarket chain released a bland one-liner to local press about correcting supplier irregularities. I screenshotted it and didn't bother reading the article. Callan stepped up in a way I didn't expect. Nomi let him shadow the younger boys on weekends, and he took it seriously, like it was a job. Taught them how to track assignments in a pocket notebook, how to speak up without shouting, how to get through the day without waiting for someone to save you. You could see it in his shoulders. He was becoming someone who'd show up. Marin's spreadsheets kept growing. She tracked turnover, utility spikes, and even flagged a hallway light pattern that saved us from a blown panel bill. Celeste joked over email that she'd draft a job offer in 10 years. I believed her. Boone made himself at home in the tiny closet we turned into a building library. He found a dusty box of old chapter books, wiped them down, and taped a sign that said, "Trade a book, take a book." He ran it like a little kingdom. One day, I caught him sliding Eileen's note, still in its plastic sleeve, into a frame on the library wall. "This belongs here," he said. "It's not just ours anymore." He was right. Nomi and I never defined what we were. We didn't have to. She walked the block with me after meetings, asked how my day went like it mattered. She never asked for attention, just gave it, in quiet, solid ways. We knew what pressure looked like. We avoided it. That night, after painting Unit 2B, we brought a mom and her 2 kids up the stairs. She held her keys like they'd break in her hand. Her boys ran straight to the kitchen and opened every cabinet. I didn't say anything, just stood in the hallway and listened. The refrigerator hummed. I leaned back against the wall and let it sink in. The quiet kind of sound that means somebody's going to sleep with a locked door and full shelves. That hum, it felt like forgiveness. The festival wasn't fancy. We borrowed a stage from the parks department, strung up lights that flickered if you stepped too hard, and blocked off the street with old pallets and a handmade Lawton Block Festival banner. 2 food trucks pulled in early, 1 barbecue, 1 tacos, and by noon, the whole street smelled like brisket and fresh paint. Somebody set up a face painting table near the alley. One of the little kids walked past with a dragon curling over his forehead like it belonged there. We didn't do a gala. That felt wrong. This was for the block, for the people who scraped paint, moved furniture, swapped fuses, and showed up tired but still smiling. Celeste cut the ribbon short and sweet. "I've seen money ruin people," she said. "This is the opposite." Then she stepped aside like she hated the attention. Shayla Kern showed up in jeans and flats, bought lemonade from Boone, without blinking at the glitter on the sign. He handed her the cup with both hands, polite but not scared. She sipped once, then looked at me and said, "Stay steady, Mr. Lawton." And for just a second I saw her job in her eyes, how many families she's seen break under pressure, how much harder it is to report good news than bad. Judge Holbrook came too. No robe, just a charcoal pantsuit and a sharp gaze. She didn't make speeches. She walked Unit 3C, nodded at the kitchen sink install, and lingered in the utility room longer than necessary. When someone asked about the case, she didn't flinch. "This," she said, "is what good stewardship looks like." Callan stood on the stage mid-afternoon, shoulders squared, voice clean. He thanked every volunteer by name. You could hear him over the river traffic. The kid who used to walk like he didn't want to take up space? He owned the block for 3 minutes flat. Marin passed out her handout like it was gospel. Tight margins, clean data, 1 sheet front and back. She showed how housing a family here saved the city thousands in motel placements and ER visits. A councilwoman grabbed 2 copies and asked for a PDF later. Marin said, "I'll send it tonight." Boone sat in the pop-up reading circle under a shade tent and read, "Families come in different sizes," like it was a bedtime story for strangers. When he finished, he pointed to the photo of Eileen's note laminated on the library wall. "That's my great-grandma's letter," he said. "She wrote it for everybody, not just us." He didn't say it like a kid. He said it like a messenger. Nomi moved through the crowd like she was born hosting block parties, laughing, hugging, redirecting arguments before they started. When she got behind the info booth where I was handing out printed flyers, she leaned in and squeezed my hand. No words, just that. And it settled something in me that no amount of zeros ever could. Midway through cleanup, I got a call from the terminal. My supervisor said corporate finished the theft audit. New seals, new procedures. A memo had gone out with my log format almost word for word. He asked, "That promotion, still off the table?" I said, "Talk to me next year." He didn't push. A local paper ran a write-up that Sunday. No mention of inheritance, no numbers, just quotes from tenants about working plumbing, safe stairwells, and art in the hallways drawn by kids with names like Jordan, Lena, and Will. It talked about rent that didn't spike in winter. That was the headline I wanted. That night, we took a pan of boxed brownies up to the roof and hit play on a kid-safe playlist. The string lights from the party still glowed faint on the brick. The river threw our laughter back at us in echoes. The heater clicked 3 times, then settled into a steady hum. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about what we'd lost. I thought about what we were building, loud, tired, imperfect, and how we passed the test without even knowing which day it ended. We sat around the kitchen table, like we did every night, notebooks out, forks scraping plates clean. This wasn't for show. This was our system now. Good, hard, and next. Everyone said their 3. Nobody got skipped. Nobody got cut off. Callan went first. Good as Boone's reading circle, he said. Hard as that kid at the center whose shoes don't fit anymore. Next is asking Eddie if he's got a weekend job. I'm ready. I didn't say anything, just nodded once and wrote it down in the logbook. Marin had her laptop balanced on her knees, half a granola bar still in the wrapper beside her. Good as the water bill trending down since we fixed that leak behind 2A. Hard as that column on unit costs. I still can't reconcile it with the spreadsheet from February. Next is rolling out that tenant survey I drafted. She passed a copy across the table. It had a header, footnotes, and formatting that screamed future city planner. Boone scooted up onto his knees, hands planted like he was bracing for launch. My good is the lizard I found by the dumpster. Named him Peanut. He lives in a box now. Hard is, I miss Mom sometimes, even when I don't get why she left. And next is maybe a dog, like a small one, not big. We all laughed. One of those deep ones that pulls tension out of your chest, whether you want it to or not. When they looked at me, I kept it simple. Good as Judge Holbrook's face when she saw the building last week. Hard is guarding the center of gravity now that people are circling again. And next is finishing Unit 3F, so that single mom and her toddler can get a front window and a door that locks. No one replied. They didn't need to. That one meant something. Later, while they cleaned up the plates, I checked my email. Celeste had sent one line. Your 90 days finished last month. I read it twice, then leaned into the doorway. We passed the test, I said. Didn't even notice when it stopped being hard. Callan looked up. That's how you know it worked. At midnight, a text came in from Heather. I'm ready to talk parenting plan. Marcus is taking time right now. Thought you should know. I didn't reply. I flagged it and sent it to my lawyer. Let him earn his retainer. That old part of me, the one that kept trying to explain myself to her, to win some kind of basic respect, it finally sat down and shut up. After lights out, Nomi and I walked the block, slow, jackets zipped up, boots echoing soft on the pavement. We stopped outside the library window and looked through the glass at the photo of Eileen's note, still taped to the wall like scripture. I turned to her. I want to marry you, not this minute. But when the dust settles, I want that to be the next plan. She didn't blink, just said, let's draw up a plan. And that was the softest yes I'd ever been handed. Revenge wasn't fireworks. It was invoices paid on time. It was a second grader learning long division. It was the DA's report that didn't need my name on it. It was a building where the heat stayed on in February, and nobody got evicted just because they missed a step. I tucked Boone in under a blanket that didn't smell like storage. Kissed Marin on the head, even though she rolled her eyes and said, "Dad, I'm not 5." Shoulder tapped Callan on my way out the room. He grinned, sharp and quiet, like he saw the man I was still learning to be. Then I climbed the fire escape. I looked out at the river we never left, counted slow. 1 day, 1 shift, 1 rent that doesn't climb out of reach. We didn't pick easy. We didn't pick rich. We picked a block that looks back at us and says, "You did right." After Nate chose love over luxury, what would you give up today to keep family steady? Drop a comment, even just good story, or your take. If you'd like to support the channel, tap super thanks. It's optional, but really helps. And please like and subscribe. Huge for us, easy for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.